Good afternoon, my lovely friends from Meat Lover Channel. I'm here to tell you about something that happened to me a while ago, at the beginning of August to be precise. My name is Nancy, but everyone calls me Nanny. I'm a well-groomed, polite, and very affectionate lady. My body is well maintained. You may not believe it, but I still train to keep in shape. I'm a bit short, white-skinned, with short brown hair and a big front. I always have trouble buying a bra. I've always been a respectful lady. I'm a confectioner. I've been working with it for a long time, and I've gained experience in the field. I have a very peaceful and quiet life. Sometimes I'm a bit shy, but I've changed my behavior over time and with the actions of my grandson. His name is Noah. He's 25 years old, tall, strong, with a huge bulge. And whenever I'm alone or have no one to keep me company, he makes a point of staying with me. Now I know why. My daughter, his mother, lives far away in another state, and he comes to visit me sometimes. Last time, he came a bit more boldly, with a bit more of that mischief, if you know what I mean. I live alone, in a house with a yard, and when he arrived, I welcomed my grandson with a big hug, and I noticed that in the hug, his hands were disguisedly smooching me. I didn't say anything. Then he went to take a shower, and I went to make some sweets. I needed to do some more work, but I was interrupted by my grandson asking me to bring him a towel. I took it, went up the stairs, and into the upstairs bathroom. Arriving at the door, I saw Noah for the first time like that. It was the first time I saw his tool. It was beautiful and huge. I was mesmerized. At that moment, I forgot two details. I forgot that I was there just to take the towel, and the other was that Noah is my grandson, and that could be wrong. I knocked on the door and went in. "Mum, you didn't have to come in. I didn't want you to see me like this." "Stop it, Noah. What's beautiful has to be seen. And on top of that, I'm your grandmother. I can go into the bathroom whenever I want." I realized that he was starting to turn red with embarrassment. So I remembered how men my grandson's age go crazy when they see a woman like me in that situation. I'm sure Noah had even forgotten that I was his grandmother at that moment. His tool started to get hard at that moment, so he grabbed the towel and quickly covered himself. It was at that moment that I realized that in the next few days I would certainly be in for a surprise. I started teasing my grandson from then on, and it was actually he who started it, smooching me when he hugged me. "Stop being naughty, Grandma, and don't you dare tell my mother I'd die of embarrassment," he said to me with a laugh. I'm sure I've never seen a cheekier man than that. Of course I laughed along with him, because I was loving it. To think that my grandson and I would become intimate like this, it never crossed my mind. But this feeling of power was getting to my head. The ulterior motives were at the top of my mind. So I left the bathroom and went to finish preparing the food. We ate and went to bed as if nothing had happened. I did as he asked and didn't comment on it, but I had a plan in mind. The next morning, my grandson woke up, and the first thing I did was ask him for help. I decided to do that prank we see in those adult movies. I pretended to be stuck in the washing machine, and I shouted at my grandson non-stop. "What's wrong, Mum? What happened? You keep calling me. Help your grandma out here, boy. I got stuck in the washing machine. Be careful when you pull me out." It was at that moment that I heard a whisper. It sounded like Noah was saying, "Look what that crown does to me. How am I going to get my peace under control like that? Surely she's teasing me." He thought I wasn't listening because my head was inside the washing machine, so I didn't say anything. I just kept moving my body behind him, teasing him even more. "Help your grandma, honey. Don't leave me like this." Then he tried to pull me out, but I felt something very big. This was certainly what I'd expected. It was the tool. He was really struggling to hold on, but as he was trying to help me get out of there, he kept rubbing me all the time. I was loving that feeling. "I can't get you off, Mama, but can I take this opportunity to tell you something, since we're closer now?" Noah's voice trembled a little, and I knew he was trying to put his feelings into words, even if he was a little uncomfortable with the situation. "Of course, darling, you can say whatever you want," I replied in a calm tone, as if what he said wouldn't surprise me. However, inside, the tension was beginning to build, and I knew something was coming. He hesitated for a moment, perhaps thinking of the right words. I won't be able to stay here for long, he said, with a mixture of shyness and frustration. If you were a man, you'd understand what I'm going through. I paused, pretending not to understand what he was trying to say, even though I knew very well. I decided to keep the innocence in my tone, teasing a little more. What's wrong, my grandson? Are you ill? I asked, with an air of false naivety. I knew exactly what he was feeling. After all, the way I teased him was far from discreet, and his reaction was no surprise to me. My grandson shook his head and let out an almost resigned sigh. It's not that, Mum, he said, trying to explain as clearly as possible without being vulgar. It's you. The vision I'm having right now is wonderful. That's the problem. If I go on like this, I might end up doing something stupid and maybe you won't like it. Noah's confession came loaded with tension, and I could feel the internal conflict he was facing. The way he looked at me made it clear that the situation was far from comfortable for him, but at the same time, there was something irresistible about it all. He was struggling with his impulses as a man, and the weight of what he was trying to control was visible in every word he said. So at that moment, I decided it was best to put the teasing aside for the time being. I was beginning to enjoy this game of cat and mouse, and I knew I could stretch the situation out a little longer, to the right point. The tension in the air was visible, and every move seemed planned. The atmosphere between us was one of anticipation. I knew exactly what I was doing, but Noah had no idea. The fun was watching him believe he had control of the situation. I don't know what you're talking about, Noah, but try pulling me again. This time, I think I can get out, I said, feigning a certain vulnerability. Of course it was all part of the plan. He innocently believed that I was really trapped and tried to help me with all the strength he had. When he pulled me, I actually managed to get out, letting go with planned ease. In reality, I was just pretending from the start. It was an almost perfect performance. My grandson, without suspecting a thing, believed that he had been the hero of the situation. Good, he whispered, relieved, without realizing that it was all part of a game I'd been playing all along. At the same moment, I realized that something had changed. His body was reacting differently, and his posture indicated a certain discomfort, or perhaps a mixture of embarrassment and excitement that he was trying to disguise. He quickly stood up, with an almost automatic gesture, and announced that he was going to take a shower. Perhaps to escape the awkward situation, perhaps to calm down. It wasn't easy for him to understand what was going on, while I, on the other hand, was in complete control. Remember when I said that I would go into the bathroom whenever I wanted? That's right. I meant it. From the start, I had a plan in mind, and my every move was calculated. The ideal moment was coming, and I just had to wait for the right moment to act. As soon as he entered the bathroom, the opportunity presented itself. My heart was pounding harder, not from nervousness, but from the adrenaline of the moment. As I approached the bathroom door, something caught my eye. There was a peculiar sound, with a rhythm, but it was difficult to identify what it was straight away. It sounded like someone was clapping their hands or something, but it was softer and more repetitive. Curiosity overtook me, and without thinking too much, I bent down to peek through the keyhole. It was then that I understood what was really going on. Inside, alone, and completely oblivious to the fact that I was watching him, was Noah. He was indulging in an intimate moment, relieving himself in a way that was, to say the least, unexpected to see. I confess that it took me by surprise, but at the same time, something in me stirred in a completely new way. I had never felt this way before. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a kind of adrenaline rush that I didn't know I could feel. And there I was, standing there, unable to look away. My grandson, concentrating on what he was doing, without even imagining that I was there, watching him with a mixture of amazement and fascination. Time seemed to pass slowly, and as I watched him, I realized that he was about to finish. It was at that moment that I made an impulsive decision. Without thinking twice, I turned the handle and opened the door, suddenly interrupting his private moment. His shock was immediate. Noah jumped backwards, totally bewildered, his expression a mixture of shock and embarrassment. "Mama, what's that? My God, you scared the hell out of me!" he exclaimed, trying to pull himself together while looking for a way to deal with the embarrassing situation. I, on the other hand, remained calm and composed, as if the whole thing was the most natural thing in the world. "Didn't I say I'd go into the bathroom whenever I wanted?" I replied, my voice firm and assured. "Well, I've decided that now is the right time to take a shower, and I want to take that shower now, may I?" He blinked a few times, still processing everything that was happening, but soon replied, with a slightly nervous smile on his face, trying to break the tense atmosphere. "Sure you can, Grandma. But look, I'm not responsible for what might happen, okay?" That made me smile. I knew he was trying to keep control of the situation, but I decided to tease him a little more, making it clear that I knew more than he thought. "Oh yeah? And what exactly do you mean by that, Noah? Are you talking about your tool?" I looked straight down, where he was still trying to disguise what had just happened. "There's no point in trying to hide it. I saw what you were doing." My grandson's face turned red with embarrassment, and he remained silent for a few seconds, clearly not knowing what to say. I knew he hadn't expected this reaction from me. It wasn't my intention to make him uncomfortable or embarrassed, but the fact that he had been taken by surprise and that I had been so direct had certainly left him speechless. "You left me like this, Mama. It's your fault." I looked straight into his eyes, feeling the intensity of the moment, and without hesitation I replied, "So it was my fault? Let me fix this mistake now." It was impossible to ignore the tension in the air, something unexpected that took hold of me in a way I'd never imagined. I quickly moved on, kissing him right there, under the shower, without thinking about the consequences. The warm water ran down our bodies, increasing the feeling of closeness and desire even more. It was the first time I had allowed myself to do something like this, something so impulsive and out of the ordinary, especially with my grandson, a person I would never have imagined getting involved with in this way. I confess that at first I was surprised by my own attitudes, but as the minutes passed, I realized that I was enjoying it a lot. Every touch, every movement seemed to awaken a new sensation in me, as if what was happening was wrong and irresistible at the same time. The shock of reality was knocking at the door, but at that moment, all that mattered was what we were doing there, under the shower, with the water pouring down as if trying to put out the fire that was starting inside me. He looked at me with a sideways smile, mixing malice and surprise. "You really are mean, aren't you? You provoked me on purpose, didn't you?" His voice was filled with a mixture of accusation and jest, as if he knew that somehow everything that had happened so far had been orchestrated by me. "I was just testing you, darling," I replied with an equally mischievous smile. "And congratulations, you passed the test with flying colors." There were no more barriers between us. The game was clear, and the tension that had previously existed had turned into pure desire, mutual desire. We knew it shouldn't be happening, but who said we could stop it? With each passing second, it became harder to resist the attraction. It was there, in that small bathroom, with the sound of the water playing, that we had our first relationship. It was intense, surreal, almost as if we were in a parallel universe where nothing else mattered but that moment. Every touch, every movement was charged with an urgency I had never felt before. Time seemed to stand still as we explored every part of each other, and the sensation was that we were being carried away on a wave of adrenaline and pleasure. When it was finally over, I felt my body relax completely. I left the bathroom about 30 minutes later, still feeling the effects of everything that had happened. My breathing was heavy, my heart still pounding in my chest. What we had just done echoed in my mind, and the feeling of accomplishment mixed with the expectation of what could still happen made me very excited. I walked to the living room, where I knew he would be meeting me soon. There was something in the air, an electricity that seemed to connect us, even though we were in different rooms. I sat on the sofa, still wet from the shower, waiting for him, knowing that it wouldn't be long before we once again wanted to give in to the desire that had somehow become impossible to ignore. Before continuing with this real account of infidelity, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. The minutes passed slowly as I thought about everything that had happened. Would it change things between us? Was what we did there just the start of something I could no longer control? Whatever it was, one thing was certain. That afternoon had changed everything. There was no going back. We were connected in a different way now, and something told me that soon we would once again be surrendered to the fire that had been lit between us. When he came back, it wasn't simply to sit next to me. He approached me in a way that made me a little uncomfortable, so close that I could feel his breath. The atmosphere seemed to carry an even spicier air this time, and his curiosity was evident. Noah looked directly at me, as if he were hypnotized. At that moment, my face began to heat up, embarrassment taking over. It was becoming common for him to look at me like that, and the way his eyes remained fixed on me left me not knowing what to do. I tried to disguise my embarrassment, but he noticed. He smiled sideways, and instead of making the moment more awkward, he laughed, breaking the ice of the situation. I, a little embarrassed, ended up laughing along with him, and the tension that hung in the air melted away, transforming everything into something lighter, almost comical. It was funny how quickly things could change between us, from something uncomfortable to an exchange of shared laughter. Then, completely unexpectedly, Noah started rubbing his face against my headlights, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I was so surprised that I couldn't say anything. He laughed as he did it, and his words came out light, but full of affection. "Grandma, you're amazing. I love every detail of you." His words, however jokingly spoken, carried a sincerity that took me by surprise. He was admiring me in a way I had never imagined, and it touched me in a profound way. When he said that I looked beautiful, that he loved every detail about me, I knew it wasn't just a joke. He really saw something in me that I hadn't seen for a long time, and that filled me with a joy I couldn't describe. Maybe it was the simple fact that I felt important again, or maybe it was the unconditional love he showed without reservation. Not knowing how to react, I just smiled shyly. Those words touched me in a way I hadn't expected. I was so red, so embarrassed, that I couldn't even hide it. He, my beloved grandson, was leaving me speechless, not knowing exactly how to react. But at the same time, there was a tenderness in that moment that made me smile. I was surprised at how much this situation was affecting me. While I was still processing what was happening, Noah moved even closer and gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. It was a simple gesture, but it carried so much affection that I felt a warmth in my chest, a good feeling that I hadn't felt in a while. It was as if, in that small act, he was showing me how much he loved me and how much he wanted me. I decided to let the moment flow, to let my grandson express his affection in his own way, without worrying about whether it was right or wrong. After all, I trusted him with all my heart. He was my grandson, and I knew there was genuine love between us. "Okay, Noah, now what do you want Grandma to do?" I smiled, already freed from fear. He put his tool out and said, "It's all yours." It was a huge tool. I wasn't used to it. We went into the bathroom together once more, and this time it felt even more intense than in the last shower. The hot water ran down our bodies, and that moment was simply irresistible. As if we were in sync, we didn't need words to understand what each other wanted, and so, once again, we gave ourselves over to a connection that seemed to grow with every moment. The bath became something much more intimate, much deeper. It was as if the warmth of the water and the sensation of being together intensified everything. Then, in the evening, it was the same. We met again in a silent fantasy of desire, an exchange of caresses and glances that said everything we needed to know. And the next day, it happened again and again. During that week, it seemed as if time had stopped. The routine became a sequence of intense moments, where each touch, each kiss, was more electrifying than the last. I realized that I was living the best week of the last 30 years. It was as if I had rediscovered who I really was, as if something in me had awakened, and I knew I didn't want to go back. Since my grandson did this to me, my outlook on life and on myself has changed completely. He has made me realize how much I still have to enjoy, to explore. At 65, I feel more alive than ever. I've decided that I want to enjoy everything my body can still offer. I want to feel more, experience more, and not be ashamed of who I am. After all, life doesn't have a certain age at which you have to start living it. And now that I've rediscovered myself, I feel an irresistible urge to go out more, meet people, have fun with whoever wants to be by my side. It doesn't matter if I'm a 64-year-old crown. What matters is that I feel good about myself. I still have a marked waistline, and my headlights continue to attract glances. And of course, I carry with me a hint of perversity that doesn't embarrass me, but rather amuses me. This recent period has been a complete rediscovery, and every moment has brought me a new sense of freedom. I'm no longer afraid of what people might think. I don't care. The judgment of others doesn't define who I am. I own my body, my life, and now I'm going to enjoy every second of it. If anyone wants to join me on this journey, let them. I'm ready to experience everything that life can still offer me, without restrictions, limitations, or prohibitions. These moments I've shared with you are just the beginning. I'm sure there's much more to come. If you liked my story, subscribe to my channel and leave a like. I want to share more of these stories, more of these moments, and I want you to be with me on this adventure. Let me know in the comments if you'd also like a flight like this, and I'll see you next time.